99% of people are completely unprepared to enter the world by the time they leave school, and that's despite spending a whole 17 years of their life there. Today we're going to talk about how this is possible, how we can fix it, and how it's going to make life so much easier after you press the like button. I'll start with a story. For most of human history, education was done almost completely on the job. That was true for our hunter-gatherer ancestors, medieval tradesmen and clergy, and even those pirates who built the trading companies that allowed Europe to take over the entire world for about 200 years. In the Industrial Revolution, however, two things happened that completely changed the game. The first was that little children started working in factories and getting horribly injured. The second was that empires needed a new class of paper pushers that were entirely obedient, wholly unambitious, and never questioned authority. That's exactly how school, as we understand it, got its start. Sadly, even though knowledge and the world went through massive changes in the 20th and 21st centuries, the way we choose to convey knowledge and skills didn't change at all. The real problem is that today, most value is created using something called models. Those are the abstract theories and laws that convey everything from how to mine the earth for minerals, to how to launch rockets into space, and quite literally, everything else in between. And unfortunately, according to this study, which we'll link below in the description, as well as Scott Young's excellent book, Ultralearning, humans are quite bad at taking things they learn in one context, a lecture hall for example, and transferring them to another context like programming a computer. According to many learning experiments that have taken place over the last 100 years, this is for two reasons. The first is that from an early age, children just have different interests. Some kids prefer reading books, while others prefer building things and experiencing the world with their hands. Those are two different types of understandings, and they have very predictable implications for the different kinds of work that people enjoy as they get older. The second reason is that most people, when they go to learn things, they never get a good enough grasp of the basics to apply it at a more complicated level, let alone take it into a completely different context. You normally get tested on the same or nearly the same examples that are initially used to teach. This leads to people thinking that they have a really solid grasp of what was being taught, even if that was not true at all, and that could have been demonstrated through using a very different but structurally equivalent example. It's kind of like being able to ride a bike, but not actually having enough understanding of the mechanics in order to tell somebody how to do it who's never seen a bike before. Scott Young says this is actually true of almost any skill. In order to learn and use knowledge independent of context, you need to develop something called intuition. Intuition is the ability to see a connection between a skill you already know and a problem you have to solve without anyone having to tell you that that connection is there. But in order to have intuition about something, you need to completely understand it. So how does that actually happen? Well, three things need to align first. Actually caring as opposed to being forced to care, close and detailed study, and the third is keeping a good set of really detailed notes. But first, what does it mean to actually care about something? To care about something means that you are necessarily sold on its value. And in order to be sold on the value of something, you need to see really clear connection between a problem that exists now or will exist in the future and the knowledge or skills you're learning as a solution to that problem. This is where the total abject failure in the title of this video really starts to apply. Educators, almost wherever they're working, never choose to start with this. To sell yourself on an idea, spend some actual time with it. Craft some social media posts, write a research essay, and then if it turns out you're not excited about learning at all, then it's really time to just remove yourself from the situation. Otherwise, it's time to get down to some serious studying, but you need to know how to do it properly first. Almost nobody does. Let me explain why. Proper studying requires complete focus for an extended period of time, as well as actually grinding and drilling on problems. Much of the book Ultralearning that we've been talking about in this video has to do with Scott Young's attempt of the MIT Challenge, learning the entire computer science curriculum in just 1 year. He used a very specific learning algorithm in order to be able to do that, and I'm going to tell you exactly what that is. Take any new idea, Write down everything you think you know about it, and then go to the source material and compare what you think you already know to what the book says. Take very careful note of the difference between the two because that's what you have to work on. If you don't know anything about it whatsoever, just go straight to the source material and try and explain what you read to yourself in the same way you would want to explain it to somebody else later who didn't have access to the textbook. And for knowledge, that's pretty much it. If there's a skill involved, it gets a little bit more complicated. Start by carefully copying out 1 to 2 examples from the problem set and see if everything looks familiar. Then, without looking at the solutions, try and solve another one of the examples that are already laid out in the book. Then compare what you wrote to the way it's laid out in the source material and see what the difference is. If there was just a procedural mistake or maybe you miswrote something, then you can just do a few more drills and you'll probably be fine. But otherwise, if there's a more substantial, more structurally ingrained error, then it's time to make a full list of all the different skills that you actually need to solve that problem. Go through them one by one and look up a few examples. Let's take exponents from math. In order to calculate exponents, you need to be able to count, you need to be able to add, and you need to be able to multiply. So in this case, we look at a few examples of how to do each one, do a couple of drills to see what was actually getting us tripped up. Once you're satisfied that none of those are actually a problem, go back to the main subject and continue doing examples until you feel as though you have the main skill set and knowledge down from whatever you're studying and all the sub skills that you need to be able to do it flawlessly each and every time. Then finally, you're going to want to write out a really good copy set of notes and a really nice explanation with a solution that you yourself made up. This makes it so much easier to relearn very quickly. One thing you will notice is that this sounds like a long process, but I promise you, it is a lot less time than it takes to cram something for an exam, forget it almost immediately after, and then have to relearn it several times for every instance you need to actually apply it in the real world, whatever it is. It is critical to keep a good set of detailed notes. It simply is not possible to retain every fact, every skill, every insight, every interesting idea that we've heard over the years. That's why we need to use whatever note-taking system we're comfortable with, make sure it's digital, make sure it's searchable, and make sure we can always carry it with us. You can do this very simply using just Apple Notes. This compiles into a massive bank of knowledge that is your personal digital asset. Nobody can ever take it away from you, and you can carry it around for your entire life. You also may have noticed that through this process, everyone would necessarily come to a subject with different levels of background knowledge and therefore need to work at different speeds. That is the second key failure of the education industrial complex. It forces everyone to learn at whatever speed they tell you to work at, which is guaranteed to be either too slow or way too fast for 99% of people, which is why about 99% of people do not come out of public school prepared to take on the real world. And that's it. This is the way to fix learning for individual people. If you like this video, please remember to click subscribe and the bell button so I know that these videos are valuable and I'm going to keep making more of them for the channel. For now, I look forward to seeing you in the next one.